When it comes to sales, are you experiencing success or are you feeling stuck? Today, I reflected on the 20 years, yes, 20 years I spent as a frontline seller before I went into sales training, speaking, and coaching. And it hit me today like a ton of bricks. There was something that was completely overlooked in all the traditional sales training programs I went through. And I worked for some pretty big companies, Fortune 500, and none of them mentioned what I'm about to share with you. Once I figured this out, it changed my entire sales career, especially my results, helped me move from being an average to a top sales performer, and then on to a sales trainer and an author. But what is it that most commonly is overlooked in these sales training programs I'm talking about? It's this. It's right here. It's our habits of thinking that are not addressed in any of these programs. We talk about product knowledge, knowing the competition, knowing how to go through a sales process, learning how to handle objections, how to negotiate, all these great skills that are very important, in my opinion, in any type of sales environment. But what we forget about and what's overlooked is the habits of thinking we have that get in the way of our success. Now, I came face to face with this back in about 2010 because I remember I was a top sales performer. Everything was great. I was on stage at the national sales meeting. I got promoted to be a sales field trainer. I was making great money. Everything was wonderful. And then I had a year where I wasn't successful. And I couldn't figure out what was I doing wrong. I mean, I still had the product knowledge. I still knew how to close. I still knew the sales steps of the step-by-step process to make the sale. Nothing had changed there, but what had changed was my mindset. And I was so frustrated, I decided to hire a sales coach, which I recommend any of you do out there if you're stuck. But the sales coach got me to see that what had changed was my mindset and my focus. My focus was on failure instead of success. So I drew a couple diagrams here that I want to talk to you about. And you might be wondering, what does a smiley face, an arrow, and a star have to do with sales? And I'm going to explain it to you right now. Number one, I'm going to share with you 3 thought habits that I am confident will change your sales performance and your focus. The first is, number 1, the smiley face, connecting with people and your life happiness. Now, if you're in a bad mood and you get in front of a customer or a prospect and you let that carry into your meeting and that exchange with the other person, they're going to pick on it really fast. They will pick up that you are in a bad place, in a negative place. And that's not how people want to associate. They don't want to associate with negative energy. People buy from whom they like and who they trust. So it's important that we remember connecting with people and people skills is important, but most importantly, be happy. I know that sounds really cliche, but I remember on some of my tough sales days, I would always remind myself why I got into the business I was in. I was in business and sales to help people, to save lives, especially when I was in medical sales. I always remembered that what I was selling was going to make a difference in healthcare. Even on my toughest days, that carried me through. The next thing represents an arrow, and I call this self-discipline, structure. Self-discipline is critical because without self-discipline, I've never been successful, especially in sales. Self-discipline is what we need when the going gets tough. Self-discipline is what we need when we don't want to make that phone call, when we don't want to knock on a door, when we have a really bad sales day and we want to just quit. Self-discipline gets us through the finish line. That's where I drew an arrow. Think of that as the finish line. But self-discipline will also help us stay the course. It helps us follow processes and procedures internally that we need to follow to be successful. A sales process, for instance. Last but not least, I wanted to draw the star. The star for me represents sales confidence. Be confident in what you're doing, even if you don't know your product well, if you're new, if you're having a tough time. Remember, if you're confident and if you fake it until you make it, I know that you're going to succeed. I remember being new in a lot of my positions, not really knowing what I was talking about, but I still wore a smile on my face and I acted like I knew I was talking about. And with these 3 tips, I promise you, you too will experience sales